or reduced the programme of work that they had on. So again, we've spent quite a number of months in a sort of a step up and step back, sort of 2 steps forward but 1 step back in terms of the services, because we've seen peaks and troughs within the pandemic. And as members will be aware from I'm sure from the news and updates that have been had across the council, we're again experiencing real challenges. I think it's fair to say, with the new variant, and that is looking to get worse as we head towards January. So where we were hoping that we would move more into the refocus and onto the reshape and true transformation parts of the programme, we are still battling the pandemic and needing to adapt accordingly. However, we have, through refocus, that's supporting the city to emerge and grow, continued to do lots of projects, plans and strategies that have been adopted by the council, and reintroduced as many of the work programmes as we possibly can when it was safe to do so. And we will continue with that approach as much as we possibly can. I think what you can see for anyone that's been in and around Swansea, the skyline is changing with the new buildings, with the developments that are happening. And again, I'd just like to pay tribute to everybody, members and officers across the council, because without that dedication and commitment, those changes wouldn't have taken place. And many authorities we've heard about how projects have either been put on hold, but ours have continued. And I think this would be a good opportunity for Marlon just to go through probably some of those refocus areas that have either been well underway or got restarted, to give you a bit more of a flavour of the positive actions that have been taken during a most difficult time. Marlon?
Okay, thanks, Adam. So I suppose, as Adam has clearly set out there, we are still in response to the pandemic and we're having to be very flexible. However, delivery of phase 2, the refocus, is well underway, and the work streams are producing some really good work. There's some great examples, and I'm going to split this out into what we're achieving for staff and what we're achieving for our citizens, because I think it's quite important that we recognise both equally. So for staff, we've got a leadership hub up and running, which has been attended really well from across the directorate. Many staff from all different levels, and we've got some really good inspirational speakers attending Leadership Hub and having good feedback on that. We've got an ideas hub that's been relaunched for staff to be putting their ideas forward on how they feel that changes can happen within their council, within their areas, or even externally, influences that are giving them thoughts and ideas for changes. We've also got renewed agile policy and tools and guidance that are ensuring that our staff are safe while they're working from home. With regards to for our citizens, there's some superb projects going on across the work streams. We're really thrilled in that our local area coordinators, we've managed to roll that out across the whole of Swansea, which was a great achievement. And our education and child and family department, they have got a single point of contact now in relation to any vulnerable children accessing on-site provision. And again, throughout the pandemic, that has proven to be a great resource, and it's a shared criteria that both education and child and family are working towards. We've got some great partnership work going on. There's a community project where we've got a partnership approach, and we've been distributing mobile phones along with credit to those in the city who are in need of them. And another good partnership programme that we've got is our education department are working very closely with the DVLA, and we are reusing devices issued from the DVLA throughout our education department, which again is a really good project that's happening. And then there's our homeless strategy. So we've had over 400 positive moves from temporary accommodation into more suitable supported or permanent accommodation this year, which again is a great achievement that we're seeing. So that's a good flavour of some of the work that's going on. There is much more. But Adam, if I pass back to you now and you can pick up on what the future is.
Brilliant, thanks, Marlon. So the final phase, if you like, which is probably going to be the longest phase, is the phase 3, which is the reshape, and that's really the transformation programme for the council moving forward. So in preparation for this, I suppose it's worth just mentioning that this phase doesn't really start until after May 2022. It would be wrong of any transformation programme to be shaped and driven before the new administration is in place. So we need to be mindful of the election in May, and then shaping and being ready and fit for purpose to be able to begin that transformation after that period when we have a new administration for the council. So in order to prepare for ourselves and get ourselves in ready, by then we'll have an interim chief executive in place in preparation for that new drive and the appointment of a permanent chief executive. We've refreshed the governance structure of the various stages through the Achieving Better Together programme. So we now have the organisational cross-cutting and transformation steering group, and that's the steering group that concentrates on the day-to-day activities, making sure that each of the work streams is delivering, that we know what the milestones are, we know what the programme is, and we know the shape of what we need to do now in preparation for transformation after May. We've also looked at the board aspect, so the higher level strategic governance, and we've put that into a recovery, reshaping and budget strategy board, and that will purely look at the strategic issues, high level risks, but also look at the development that it's been undertaking so far of the medium-term financial plan. Again, you'll remember at the start I talked about how we need to ensure that the council is sustainable for the future, and again that will look at that and link the finance directly with the transformation and with the change. But we need to make sure that the transformation is for the right reasons, and that the transformation programme will be governed around a new corporate plan and looking at the objectives for the future, the well-being assessment, and things like regeneration priorities, housing, and also what the continuation of the fight against COVID, because it's unlikely that will be over anytime soon. In terms of a little assurance, which hopefully this committee will gain, is we had a recent internal audit examination to look at the programme, have a look at the assurance level, and whether or not we're delivering the governance and the programme as it was set out when it was created back in October sort of 2020. And I'm pleased to say that the assurance level given was high, which is the top assurance level, and with no recommendations. So committee can take some comfort that it is achieving what it was set out to achieve. On top of that, this PDC particularly will be aware of the support role it has played amongst other PDCs and other trade union groups and employee groups in terms of a number of presentations and working groups have come through here, especially around the one you'll be familiar with is the workforce plan and the work streams within that. That's also been undertaken with trade unions, employees and elements of PDC. It's also been through CMT and numerous other groups to make sure that the workforce plan for the future and the strategy actually takes account of all the views, both politically and operationally, to make sure that they all link together and again make us fit for the future. And I'd like to thank, if I may just take that opportunity to thank all members on this committee for their contributions, which have been really positive and maybe challenging in part, but has helped shape that strategy. And again, we'll be bringing an update back in the new year on a feedback type of report and present that to you so that you can see what has changed and how that has been shaped for the future. As part of the programme, we wanted to make sure that this PDC, as the main PDC for the Achieving Better Together programme, had an area of work that it could lead on, be involved in, and sort of champion on our behalf. And members will be able to see under section 6.4, pages 10 and 11 of the bundle that you have, an array of work streams there, some around the workforce strategy, sustainable development policy, co-production, which I know you've already had some input into. We have the Human Rights City project, which you know we have the intention to become over the next year, and also communication, engagement and participation strategy. And just some suggestions really, Chair, to try and utilise the skills and experience of this committee to help shape some of that, and perhaps as a suggestion, and we'll take guidance from both yourself and the committee on if any of those fit with your aspirations and whether or not you could see those fitting nicely into your work programme. For now, it would be just an acknowledgement that perhaps one or more of those are acceptable, and if so, we can then work with you in order to scope those out in a bit more detail and make sure that we can put that programme together and timetable it across the year to get best use of the committee in terms of its time it has available. I'll stop there if I may, Chair, and happy to take any questions or any observations on the paper.
Thank you, Adam and Marlin. With regard to 6.4, I will speak on behalf of the committee because you know, our aspiration is to deliver this policy and to work with the leadership team. So we would welcome the strands that are in the work process or the proposed work plan for 2022. So I welcome that, and on behalf of the company, we're prepared to work with you, Adam, and your team to achieve the best over the next 3 months, the next 6 months, and going forward as we do recover from COVID. I've got two speakers. Firstly, Councillor Walton, and secondly, then Councillor White. Leslie.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, quick apologies. I was late because I was coming back from another meeting. And really just some comments, virtually all positive. Fantastic that we've now got LACs across the city. Wonderful. Fantastic that we're following up on this smartphone strategy. Absolutely brilliant. And also the homelessness strategy. I mean, I don't think there's probably many councils that could boast as good a figure as what we're doing. And it's not just, I get the feeling we're being completely genuine about it. We are doing it because it's the right thing to do and the right thing to support people, many of whom are homeless for so many reasons and virtually never something to do with their own fault. It's circumstances that have pushed them into that position. So those are all positives. When it comes to 6.4, I know I keep banging this drum, but for me, I think one of the most important one of those lists is co-production. So far and above, because it's the linchpin to everything else we do. And it finally acknowledges that the people who should be involved in working out how to process something are the people who are going to be affected, and the people who are going to be affected are our residents. So for me, co-production is a no-brainer. We've got to get on with it and get people involved. I'll shut up at that point. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Leslie. Councillor White, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Adam. As I say, I noticed obviously still within our 3.62 page 20 of the report about concerns with us still obviously losing staff within the care working sector. I've been able to manage that and try and steady the ship in that area. I know the Minister in Cardiff announced more money for social care now coming to local authorities, so that was good. But just so now, if we have managed to perhaps set the ship on that, especially with this new Omicron virus coming in as well. Can I move on then to the issue of Brexit? Are there any issues that could hinder us as an authority? Because, as we know now, there's the previous Brexit minister has resigned. Somebody else picking up the mantle for that. But have you got any indication if you know, as things have been rolled out with Brexit, that issues that could press into the local authority? And then on the shared prosperity fund, have we been given any indication of what of that amount coming from that fund will come to Wales, and more importantly would come to councils and us in Swansea? Thank you, Adam.
Well, okay, if I may, Chair, I'll come back on a few of those. So with regard to social care and the staffing, lots of work has been happening across the region, obviously led by Dave Howes and his team. Look, it's going to be a real challenge with the staffing moving forward, as it has been over the whole of the pandemic. You know, they're some of the most challenging jobs, emotionally charged jobs that anybody would have to do in terms of the care sector, and obviously one of the biggest areas hit just because of the sort of the complex needs and care packages that have to be put in. So there's not an easy yes or no answer to that one, Mike. It is that we're doing all we can. We're working as a region with the health board, with Newport Talbot. We're looking at the increase in salaries to try and encourage more in. We're looking how we return people and support people in work and return them back to work if they've been off sick. But it is an area whereby, you know, PPE is highly important in order to protect our workers, but inevitably a lot of the complex care cases that are being looked after, a lot of our residents, inevitably you have to be in close contact. So as you can imagine, you know, COVID will spread in those environments. The controls that we've got are excellent. Those that are in incident in terms of care homes are few and far between now, which is excellent again. But inevitably we are seeing community transmission, and that would affect people not in work, but the transmission is out of work when they go back to family, meet with friends or so on, and that's the tension. Obviously you've seen the numbers in hospitals increasing, and bed capacity in hospitals is again a challenge, and pretty much all the spare beds are taken. And as the COVID wave increases, we're going to see that challenge becomes more. If we don't have the care beds available within social services or the domiciliary care packages, then we can't move people out of hospital. So that starts another spiral of challenge. So again, we're all working together to make sure that that flow continues. We're looking at how we can open up more through the health board in terms of beds in order to keep that transition, looking at how we work with our workforce differently to make sure pockets of care are available, but also asking families wherever possible to because they're already in that bubble, to look at how they can support their own family during this very testing time, because that is, although not a position we want to be in, it is the safest position for the individual who has that complex care need to be looked after. So it's sort of a long answer rather than yes or no. I'd love to sit here and say yes, we've cracked it and it's all good. All I can say is that we're working as hard as we can to keep on top of it. In terms of Brexit, if I can leave that, because you've got the EU exit paper next, and I know Richard's here, I think, and going to present that one, and don't want to steal his thunder. You hear too much about me anyway when I'm talking, so I'm going to leave that one for Richard. And there is a bit in there also about the replacement programme for the EU funding that was, so coming into the Shared Prosperity Fund. I don't believe there's anything more there, but again, if I may, Chair and Mike, I'll leave that for Richard to pick up under the next paper, because it sort of picks up into there, and I may chip in occasionally if I'm allowed to do so.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Mike, you should be happy it's Christmas, otherwise I would have shouted at you. Adam, I'd like to ask you just two quick things. The first thing is with the homelessness strategy, we've done really, really well. And as has been said previously, you know, as a local authority, we really need to be really proud of ourselves and what we've achieved. My question is around, obviously, as we climb out of COVID, are we working on a strategy with regard to housing and homelessness to develop across the city more 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom accommodation? Because we all know the need and the demand is there, and probably during the pandemic, you know, it's really hit home that we should, you know, be really looking at a strategy where we are providing accommodation, releasing the bigger properties, because we all know throughout our communities, throughout the city and county, we've got individuals or couples who are actually tenants or residents in larger family homes. So where are we on that, please? And with regard to the mobile phone, I welcome that, as Leslie has said, another massive positive for us as a local authority. To who or to which communities are the phones being distributed currently? Thank you.
Well, thanks, Chair. I'll pick up the homeless strategy first. I'll do them in order. I mean, you know as well as I do that the commitment of this authority is to work and address homelessness, has been for a number of years now, and that's really well led by Andrea as cabinet member and Mark Wade as head of service. That will, as far as I'm aware, continue to be where we want to be. Obviously, we're looking at build programs. We're looking at how we can repurpose, also working with our housing association colleagues in terms of how we can work on this together. It's not just a council issue. It's about a partnership across communities. And I think, although there is a shortage of 1-bedroom or accommodation, I think we need to go back to the source of some of these problems. You know, we've been working quite heavily through community safety, and you'll remember from the paper that Paul Thomas came on how we're dealing with things like domestic abuse, or how we are addressing homelessness through community cohesion. So there's lots of different plays. It's not just about building more properties. It's about looking at the root cause of why people are homeless, how we can get into the youth earlier, look at intervention, look at how people can have more employment, come out of poverty, and how they can afford other types of property, how we can keep families together, how we can use mediation in order to balance family and family life and the challenges that have, and also how we can work with people that are perhaps at risk of unemployment or redundancy, again on the back of economic development and regeneration, and better workforce. Obviously, there's a real living wage. So all these factors play together under the homeless strategy in order to support rather than just build more, because that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It may give somebody a home, but doesn't solve the underlying problems that we've got. So we need to look at it not just as a homeless strategy, but across the board in terms of all aspects of intergenerational and life experience. So I hope that kind of reassures you. It's a multifaceted approach rather than let's just build more. It is looking at the underlying problems. Within the phones and the issuing of phones to community, it's across a wide spectrum of the community. It's about those that are in need, to be honest, those that are in poverty, those that are in difficulty, those that actually would benefit. So it's not particularly restricted. It is making sure that those that are most in need gain access to the technology by which we're all being driven. More and more is happening online, more and more is being there, and we'll see that further, not only in terms of the devices, but the use of Internet of Things and the use of Wi-Fi, stretching out into communities, so that again, whatever the devices or access or utilizing libraries through the computers they have, It's about how do we digitally enable. And again, giving a phone is one thing, or access to digital. There is also a program around how do we educate people in the use of that kit. How do we make sure that they have access to the digital portals and online portals that will enable them perhaps to get cheaper energy, or be able to use comparison sites to drive down the costs that they've got. So the phone again is only one aspect. It's again that across the board, it's a facilitator for lots of other areas, and lots of great work happening across the Poverty Forum, across the whole of the council, in terms of not only how they use that, but how we can do that every contact counts, to make sure that when they are using mobile technology or they are contacting the council, we view them holistically in terms of issues, opportunities, concerns, and then signpost them into the right area as a community for where we can best offer them help and support. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any more questions for Marlin or for Adam? I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you, Adam and Marlin. Marlin's obviously pretty new to us, but jumped in both feet on the ground. We thank you for that. And we appreciate, you know, the presentations and the commitment you have to this PDC. And I think we've come a long, long way. None of us know what's facing us tomorrow with what's coming our way with COVID. But a sincere thank you, you know, to your commitment and to how far we've come on this agenda item. So thank you both.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd just like to say I'm hopeful that, you know, once we can get over this next variant, there's even more benefit that we can both bring and get from this committee in terms of the transformation. And I think the real driver comes after the election, when we start moving into that true recovery transformation. And I think that's when this committee really can grab hold of some really big agendas and be a key player in driving those forward, shaping new policy and actually, you know, taking its right place in terms of those developments. But and again, thank you for your support and commitment and your continued encouragement in this agenda.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all.
So we'll move on to item 5, please. Recovery from the European Union. Richard?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the report, it starts on page 16 in your papers, and it describes the position now that we've left the EU. It looks back on the preparations that were made for EU exit, the key risks at the time, and where we are now 12 months on since leaving the transition period. So firstly, just at a UK national level, just to set the broader context, we had a trade agreement that was negotiated between the UK and the EU. Some possible difficulties around custom checks. That was an area of concern that was raised during the negotiations, and so a grace period was established, and that's been prolonged because of disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The other significant area of focus for the UK government since leaving the transition period has been the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is about the border arrangements between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, being the only land border between the UK and the EU, and of course the possible effect any disruption there could have on the Good Friday Agreement. So that's all still being discussed as we speak, and obviously remains a key area of contention between the UK and the EU, and also between the UK government and the different parties in Northern Ireland. So that's the overall UK picture in terms of where we are with Brexit, although it's been difficult to determine the true impact from Brexit on the economy and on related matters because of the overriding disruption and the ongoing impact from the COVID-19 pandemic, which has obscured some of the potential implications. In terms of local authorities in Wales, there is a similar difficulty in assessing the impacts from Brexit, but what we can do is look at the key risks for local authorities from Brexit that were identified during the preparations for leaving the EU, and then give an overview of where we are now. So firstly, it's probably useful to summarise what was done in the Council to prepare for Brexit. We established a cross-council Brexit steering group, which was jointly chaired by the leader and by the Deputy Chief Executive, Adam. And that mirrored a similar cross-Wales group chaired by WLGA, and both those groups were charged with overseeing Brexit preparations, obviously the former watching over preparations within the Council, and then the latter sharing information and good practice about what was being done to prepare across Wales in terms of Brexit. A lot of work was done, and there was a key focus at that time on preparing for the possibility of a no-deal Brexit. So a risk was established in the Council's corporate risk register, and we put in place a number of mitigating actions which were undertaken, and they're summarised in paragraph 2.2 of the report on page 17. The work that was done to prepare was then reviewed by a scrutiny working group on Brexit, which met in September 2019. And the view from the working group at the time was that the Council had prepared as well as could be expected, bearing in mind the circumstances. There were a number of key risks from Brexit for local authorities in Wales that the Council and the WLGA steering groups were aware of. And for that reason, both groups continue to meet after Brexit in order to monitor the outcomes and to be in a position to respond to any emerging risks or issues. And to the point of Councillor White earlier, key among those concerns was about replacement EU funding. So the Council has been successful in bidding for community renewal funding, over £2.5 million for 9 projects of varying descriptions, including the Blue Eden renewable energy project. And you have a full list there in the report in paragraph 332 on page 18. Where we go from this going forward is difficult to determine right now, but I guess it would be accurate to say that there is continued concern in Wales about the replacement funding and if it will match that previously provided through the EU. A second area of priority was that of the EU settlement scheme, where EU citizens and some others could apply before the 30th of June for settled status to continue to live and work in Wales. The UK government, including through the Home Office, the Welsh government, the third sector, WLGA and all the councils in Wales, we all put a huge amount of effort into promoting the settlement scheme, which included funding, digital support, promotion and awareness raising, including radio commercials, legal support and all sorts of various events and workshops across the country. And I think overall the view has been that the scheme was successful, and the figures are there included in paragraph 344 in the report. Although support is still required and is still being provided, the Welsh Government has continued to provide funding until March next year. In terms of the ports, Swansea has a port. The port situation, it's likely to be challenging in some parts of Wales where there are major ports, so specifically that in Fishguard, Pembroke Dock and Holyhead in North Wales, although there's unlikely to be any significant disruption to Swansea Port, which doesn't really deal with people or food or live animals or anything like that. So it's not subject to those additional checks or controls. So the third significant area of concern across local authorities in Wales really is that of the possible effect on supply chains. So a lot of work in the council and in local authorities across Wales went into that, into checking the resilience of the supply chains, especially in the event of a no-deal Brexit. So that included checking and maintaining stock levels, checking with suppliers to see if their access to services and goods were secure and that they had alternatives in place. And there was a lot of work to update and test business continuity plans as well. Since Brexit, we are seeing some issues with supply chains and other disruptions. But at this point in time, it appears to be something that's beyond Brexit, a global phenomenon really, resulting from the disruption that's been caused by the lockdowns in response to the pandemic, and then the effect that that's having on material availability, staff shortages in some areas, transport delays, all occurring simultaneously with spikes in demand and a global increase in commodity prices and fuel costs. And that's obviously been reflected in the recent figures around inflation. What's really difficult is trying to ascertain how much, if any, of this disruption in the UK at this stage is the result of Brexit, as distinct from the dislocations caused by the response to the pandemic. In any case, the Council believes that these issues are contained, but is keeping a close eye on those things in conjunction, obviously, with the rest of Wales and through the WLGA. And so that then leads us on to the recovery side of things, which is tied up with the Council's plan for recovery from the pandemic, and you've already discussed the report on that. Plus, there are some specific council and regional plans for economic recovery as well, which does also include proposals which should attract future funding through the government's UK Shared Prosperity Scheme, looking ahead to future years, and hopefully that will become clearer in the months ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Walton-Leslie, you have a question for Richard?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Thanks, Richard, for the report. Really good. Just a question I've got about those people who are having to apply for settlement status. I note at 3.4.5 it says that there are still individuals who haven't done so. Just wondering, what kind of numbers are we talking about? Do we know? And also, I'm always concerned. I understand what you said, that the scheme to try and get as many to sign up has been quite successful, but there'll always be some who that message hasn't got through to. And I'm just concerned about those individuals and what might happen to them if they end up not doing so and miss the final deadline. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sorry, I don't know the figures. I'll have to find out for you. Yes, I think that there has been a concern about the numbers of people applying through the EUSS. I think there is the view that the scheme was very successful. A lot of work was done to promote the scheme and to enable people to engage with it, and the figures are encouraging, but there will always, as you quite rightly say, be individuals for whatever reason have slipped through the net. I think what the Welsh Government is doing is as much as it can do in terms of trying to address what it can, and as I say in the report, you know, the funding has been extended up until March next year, and they are doing a lot of proactive work, particularly through organisations like Newfields Law, to try and help EU citizens as much as they can through the scheme.
Thanks, Richard.
Adam?
Yeah, thanks. Just to add into that, it is a concern, Leslie, about those people that sort of the message hasn't got to. I know certainly through our community cohesion team, lots have been done with the community to try and make sure that message. We've done lots of workshops, we've done lots of briefing sessions. Inevitably, some people either choose to ignore it or don't really understand it, and as many of these things, they can be quite complex. We'll continue to raise awareness wherever we can and support. We've done a lot of work with our own staff as well, where they are either come from abroad, have family members that were in the EU, again to try and raise that all the communities that they're in. So a lot of work has been undertaken, but as Richard says, I'm sure we can get those figures for you and we'll circulate those outside. I just wanted to come back, if I can, Mandy, just in terms of the Shared Prosperity Fund, because it probably didn't address Mike's question as much as he perhaps wanted to. For those that aren't aware, Shared Prosperity Fund is to replace the EU funding that was to come in. There'll be £2.6 billion spread over 3 years, and it's anticipated that will come in from April 2022. Wales will see somewhere in the region of 46 million of that 2.6 billion coming in, which is our usual kind of share. It's unclear of how it's going to be administered in. We know it will be all administered from the UK. and we've seen some projects sort of start to gather some momentum, but it's unclear really of where it's all going to be spent. It's supposed to be for those pockets of deprivation in poverty, but those deprived areas, it doesn't always seem to be hitting those areas of deprivation. So I think there's a way to go on this yet, and we'll keep you updated as the scheme rolls out a bit further. But we're unclear at the moment of exactly what will this mean to Swansea and what will we get in Swansea out of that money. But what I can assure you is that if there is a lever for us to get it in, we'll do what we can to put bids in and make sure we get our share. Hope that helps. Thank you,
Adam. It's much appreciated.
Richard, may I ask you, with regard to 3.3 EU replacement funding, successfully, we've secured the bids, we're out there leading the projects, successful projects. But one question is about the people with disabilities employability and the enterprise project. I know of a few people who have benefited from this project, but my question to you is, when we introduce somebody to this project, how do we support them then ongoing? Do we just allocate them into the project, the team then allocates as to whatever may be an advantage to them? Are they left to their own devices, or is it a continuing support scheme, such as it is with Pathways to Work? So really what I'm asking you is there a review? Is there a continual support mechanism, especially around the people with disabilities, employability and enterprise project, please?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm probably best for me to say that's probably beyond my area of knowledge and expertise, and I guess we'll have to find that answer for you from somebody who's probably better placed to answer it.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. And when we talk about supply chains and disruption, probably this is the only benefit, because it did slow down with COVID coming into our lives, and with the exit from the EU and COVID probably knocking on the door, it has slowed the process down. So probably we have had time to react to what could have been devastating, because the process has been slowed down. I appreciate, we haven't got a port in Swansea, but we have got other ways and means of probably transporting freight or items from A to B. So are we exploring that? Because there's a lot of infrastructure across Wales, and probably you can't answer me, but would it be a benefit, with regard to where we are with our drivers and where we are with our ports, even though we haven't got a port in Swansea, but across Wales we have a few. So would it be a benefit to explore other modes of transportation, to move freight or to move commodities across Wales or across the UK? And have we kind of touched upon, are we exploring it?
Chair, I think that a lot of these things are being considered. I think it's really difficult for authorities in Wales to try and understand how much of the disruption might be attributed to Brexit. Obviously, COVID appears to have been the major factor in terms of these issues, with problems with getting access to certain materials and the cost of materials, and certain areas of the workforce being difficult to recruit and retain. All these issues are probably going back to the problems of the pandemic. Very difficult to try and understand how much of that is as a result of Brexit. And in terms of the port issues, a lot of the concern obviously is around the major ports, as I mentioned, where some of the custom control checks are going to create some real challenges for those local authorities. something that we shouldn't really experience within Swansea. But I think there is a broader question in terms of opportunities and whether there is an opportunity for other ports other than the major ports to benefit from some of the things that might come forward in the future. And I guess this is something which everybody's keeping an eye on. And these are the sort of things which are also being discussed and reviewed at national level through the WLGA.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate your response. I'll pass to Adam first, and then I'll come back to you, Richard. Adam?
Thanks. Yeah, just a point of clarification. I think really, obviously, we do have a port. We do have Swansea Port in here. It's not a huge port in terms of delivery and what we have, but it does have some products and produce that comes through. We do have limited passengers coming through also. Certainly on the tour around the UK, or it's often a place to stop to get up to Pembroke and round there. So it was just to remind members that we do have a port. It's not the sort that you'll see in some of the bigger areas, but I'll always bang the drum that we it's one of the facilities that we do have in and around Swansea, and it is a lifeline for certainly Tata Steel and certainly some of the products coming in into the country. So I wouldn't want it to be dismissed too quickly. That was all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. And I appreciate we're not going to dismiss our port. So just to ask any more questions or comments for Richard? No. Richard, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your attendance today. It's really appreciated by this committee. And once again, thank you for the work you've done, well, over the last 2 years, really. Very trying, and we appreciate the work that our teams have done within the local authority. So thank you to you and your team for all your commitment and for the progress you've made on or within your department. And we thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Very much appreciate it.
Chair, if I just may take a liberty, just that Richard cited me in there as that I chair one of the groups for the EU. I'd just like to pay my thanks to Richard. He's the sort of the engine behind where I sit in relation to this, and has really got everything sorted for EU and got us into a really strong position, so that should the worst have happened, which thankfully it didn't, really did put everything in place to make sure that the authority was protected as much as possible. So I just wanted to say that, because he often comes to these committees and he does get a thanks, but the amount of work that him and his team behind the scenes are putting in is extraordinary. So I just wanted to pay my thanks, if I may.
Thank you, Adam. And we all appreciate as members and as staff and as the leaders within this local authority. It has been a very difficult time, and we have been with some big agendas, and we've had to act fast. But I would say we've achieved positive. Our actions have been positive. There's a lot of positive activity going across the city. And we will say, we've all stood up to the par, but there are some individuals, within the local authority that have come up over and above and probably shocked themselves, that they've had to react. But overall, said and done, well done, Swansea. We are the second city within Wales, but, the second capital, I should say. But, it's like the work that's been done hasn't gone unnoticed. We've all pulled together and we've achieved the best for our citizens, for our staff, our residents, I would say quite fortunate to be under such a strong leadership team. So I thank you all. And you're more than welcome to attend anytime you wish. Any more contributions? No. Okay, then we move on to the work plan.
Item 6, Chair, workshop feedback, sorry.
Yeah. Oh yes, I got that. Hang on, let me plug my phone in because otherwise I'm going to be without charge. Right, okay. Oh, hang on, guy, I've lost it. Right, workshop feedback. We successfully facilitated 2 workshops. Thank you, Joe, Marlin, and the teams that supported us. I would say quite positive. I learned a lot from both workshops. There were numerous questions asked. I think we achieved a lot from it. The aim is to put a little report together, which I'll bring back in January. But I think overall a lot was gained from the workshops and they were beneficial. Did George, you want to come in for a minute? Sorry. Hang on, Joe, sorry. David Helliwell, did you indicate to speak then? Sorry. No. Okay, thank you. Joe?
Yes, so just to add, Adrian Chard, our Strategic Human Resources Manager, who facilitated the workshop, said that he'll be collating the feedback from both workshops and put that together with the information that they've gleaned from a series of staff workshops and the staff survey. So he said in the new year he'd be happy to come back and report back to the committee and then talk about the next steps. But he was also very grateful for the opportunity to come to the PDC as well. So just to add that, Mandy.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any other contributions? Mike?
Yeah, just to say it was very encouraging, Chair, to see all the strong links and associations with the trade unions and the authority, all working together as a team. I think that's very, very important, because at the end of the day, without the staff in providing these services, you know, I see them as unsung heroes, especially over the last 2 years. You know, they've gone over and above, and they've been there, you know, every day for the citizens of Swansea, in every department providing support. And as I say, I was really grateful to hear that, you know, the trade unions have been involved around the table, putting forward options and proposals. And these options and proposals have been taken on board to see how we can all move forward to further improve the local authority, and also seeing good practice being shared as well. So that's all I'd like to say, Chair. But to thank everybody who works in the local authority for all the time and effort that they put in over the last 2 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Leslie, Councillor Walton?
Just really to echo exactly what Mike said, I think our staff have been beyond fantastic. They really have. They've pulled up all the stops to make sure that the council has carried on running as well as it's done. So, and I'm just pleased that we're bothering to take seriously a strategy that will not just help us running the council, but hopefully also help the staff who are the backbone to running the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak? I would like to add, I think a workshop does benefit, and I think we all took a lot from it. You know, you can read a document, you can take from a wish, but talking about it and emphasising certain points really explores. So well done, the committee. I think we've done really well with the 2 workshops, and again, without Adrian and his team, we would have been a little bit lost. So I will thank Adrian for his attendance, but all said and done, it was a positive experience for us all. Okay, and thanks, Joe. I don't know how many times I thanked you this year, but thank you. Right then, so we'll move on to the work plan for 21-22. Right. Right, so for January, Sustainable Development Policy, I believe that has to be, or we've had a request to transfer it later on in the year. So we move that to February. Okay, Gareth?
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I was going to say about the feedback from the workshops in January, but obviously we've touched upon that now. We can have a conversation, again, more intense in January. So we've got Resilience Fund, the co-production. We've touched on that, but as you can see, there's quite a glow to achieve and to do quite a bit of work on that strategy and push it forward. So we got co-production, and we got obviously the organisation culture, which we touched upon. Jo, is there anything else that needs to be brought forward?
It might be helpful to think before March, doing an annual review of what the committee's covered over the last 12 months, because in some cases the output from PDCs is not as clear, in the sense that quite often it's about informing or influencing policies rather than the development of brand new policies. So I think that might be quite helpful, sort of looking back over the last 12 months to see the work that the committee has sort of influenced. So that would probably be quite helpful, I think.
Do you think we should slot that into February and prepare then for March?
Yeah. Okay.
So February and the preparation, and then March, then the report, annual report. There's nothing else pressing.
I think in terms of the committee cycle, our last meeting will be in May before the election. So we've got sort of a 3-month window really. So it's a case of what other work we think we can do and complete within that timescale. I know, for example, Paul Thomas was talking about the development of the community safety strategy. I think that was early in the year, not quite sure of the timescale around that, whether that's something the committee are interested in looking at. So, for example, I know that Welsh Government have launched a consultation on the violence against women and domestic abuse and sexual violence strategy. I think the deadline for the consultation is February the 6th, I think. So that could be an area, so we could invite somebody from the community safety partnership. I think a lady called Megan leads on that, if that was something the committee wanted to explore in more detail.
Chair, just to say, sorry, the work plan dates are there. There are no meetings of the PDCs in March or April. No, sorry, in April or May, because of the election period and that. So the final meeting will be in March.
In March, yeah.
So whether the other topics could be something for next year, but just.
Well, we need to move January's agenda item onto February, don't we? Because that's scheduled in. And we'll do the preparation in February, and we'll do the annual report in March. So in February, we should really do a feedback on the workshops, a report really. And is there anything else that's pressing from the committee? Leslie?
Yeah, you mentioned the co-production workshop. When were you thinking of that? Because I mean, I know I keep banging on about it, and I'll keep banging on. Can we have it sooner rather than later? Can we have that in January? I mean, it's a workshop, isn't it? It's not going to be a formal meeting. It'll be a workshop.
I'm happy to run a workshop on co-production in January. Yeah.
I'd like to.
Okay, we'll arrange it and send out the dates. Is there anything else? No, Joe?
No, sorry, that's a legacy hand. Sorry.
Gareth, are we clear enough for you?
Yeah.
Thanks for attending this afternoon. You're more than welcome. We haven't seen you for ages and ages and ages.
My pleasure, Chair.
Okay, so we all done, guys, yeah? Right, Merry Christmas. Look after yourselves. Keep safe, please, please keep safe. And look after your loved ones, and just put your feet up and just chill. Well, you know, maybe an hour. You never know, Adam. You might get an hour here or there. But
I live in hope.
yeah, well, comes with the badge. But sincerely, just all enjoy the best you can and really keep yourself safe. That's the priority, safety. So, Merry Christmas, Nadolig Clowen to you all, and I'll see you in 2022. But take care all, just be safe.
Have a nice Christmas, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye.
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 Take
Okay.
care. Roger.
Stay on a minute.
Yeah.